can say what you want about the Obamacare website rollout, but it certainly has had a lot of luck, at least as it comes to timing. Back in October, the site's launch and crashes. They were masked in large part, as you know, because of all the attention of the government shutdown. And this weekend, the Obama administration's self-imposed second launch date, and that happened while America was busy eating turkey and shopping. So how is version 2.0 of Obamacare.com playing now? And at this point, can it ever really be the success the president and his administration wants, Democrats want for this coming fall, and more importantly, so many Americans need? Andrew?
Well, Rich, as you know, that second deadline came after all of those problems with Healthcare.gov were first reported. The White House said the site would work by the end of November, and today the calendar reads December 2nd. Since its launch 2 months ago, Healthcare.gov has been plagued by error messages, system crashes, and timeouts. But now the Obama administration says the site is recovering.
We've made significant progress in improving Healthcare.gov and achieving a system that runs smoothly for the vast majority of consumers.
The White House set a deadline of December 1st to reach that goal, and over the weekend it released a report touting what it says is significant progress. Some 400 software bugs and hardware problems have been fixed. The website can now handle 50,000 users at a time, 800,000 a day. At one point today, the site hit the 50,000 capacity. It didn't crash, and this message advised users what to do while they waited.
For the most part, users can now log in. They can search for different plans that are relevant to them.
But there was no major unveiling. The White House is delaying a big push to get people enrolled. And there are still question marks. The site fixes haven't been tested with heavy traffic, and the administration is advising users to visit the site during off-peak times to avoid delays. Republicans still aren't sold.
You never get a second chance to make a first impression, and the first impression here was terrible. And I think it's going to be an unfolding disaster for the president. One more update, the Washington Post reporting about 100,000 people signed up for insurance using the federal exchange in November. That is a 400% increase in the number who signed up in October. Rich?
Right, but they're still far off their target number of where they thought they'd be right now. Let's bring in our panel to do an assessment of both today and also in the not-too-distant future on both the political and practical calendar. Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science at Iona College and a professor of campaign management at NYU. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent who you already met. Now, let's start with success. And I know different people can define success differently. But can this thing still work? And people said, I think one policy expert at Harvard said, media needs to take a 60-day chill pill because we're going to know a lot more really in January, February, as to where we are right now. Is there a chance that the obituary is written too early on this thing?
There is a chance. I mean, this isn't as much about the website as it is about that deadline in the spring, because if you don't get that 6-7 million people they promised to sign up, particularly the young, healthy people, this thing is not going to pay for itself, and that is the big problem. So it absolutely can work, but I found it astonishing over the weekend when David Plouffe was on the weekend talk shows saying, you know, by 2017, this thing may be, you know, working the way it should be. That's not the message the administration should be sending, nor is the message that they had in the report they issued, where it said now that we have the private sector involved, the website is working, because that sends absolutely the wrong message. This is supposed to be a public sector run program. If the public sector can't run it, the program doesn't work. So they are still way off message on this thing. But to answer your question, it absolutely can work, but it's going to be determined in the spring by how many people sign up and if the costs are lower.
That's in terms of the actual operation and getting people health care. In terms of political perception, I don't think the Obama administration is going to get out from under this. I think it's always going to be they bungled the intro, they bungled the rollout. It's always going to be sort of a black mark against them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that much in the long run. I mean, everybody still pretty much blames the Republican Party for the shutdown in the beginning of October. It's just that there have been other things that have popped up since then. So if you're keeping score, that wasn't as deep a hole as we thought that was going to be. There will be other things that pop up between now and the election.
I differ a little bit. They can turn this around. The message to begin with was horrible. The beginning, Richard, was horrible. All indications are that they might not be able to turn it around. However, if they can, And in politics, perception becomes reality, as we all know. But they can fix this, Richard. When you look at what the healthcare system started with, what they were looking to replace, and if they can stop all of these overnight nightmares that they have with the internet, then perhaps public perception can change.
I think the problem is, and you guys have covered enough campaigns, that if you're ever ahead, you want to minimize expectations. You always see that, like, so that if the guy can barely stand up without falling over at the debate, that it was success. This was the reverse. To get through the election cycle, then to get through the Supreme Court, then to get obviously through obviously Congress. They had to promise that this thing was going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And when you look at polls, even with everything that's happened, the public thinks, if anything, the law doesn't even go far enough, that they wanted to even do more, the general population. I just don't know, to your point about perception and reality, if they can still mitigate in the public, this is still good. I mean, I look at the math says, you know, the actual rate of health inflation expenditures, we are less than we were if this legislation ever passed. And just from a dollars and cents thing, the thing's kind of working. You got to get the numbers. But even if people sign up, I don't know if that's enough to convince people it was worth all the agita. And that's the...
Yeah, I think they can, and I agree with Tom. I think they can recover from this in terms of the Obamacare, in terms of the health care program itself. I am not as confident that President Obama can recover for the reason that you mentioned.
But you and I know there's all these unforeseen events that can always happen around the world. Somebody looks presidential, somebody, you know.
But the fact that he said, which was a lie, you can keep your health care, and they said it for political reasons, that's something that I think the polls reflect.
I think he
People
really
aren't
meant
going
it.
to...
Whether it's a lie or not, it wasn't true. And that part's the most important part, I grant you. But
it's either that he lied or that he was that...
Right.
One
thing that will define this or not is... I'm going to throw out a name here because I think he's probably emblematic of a lot of districts. Sean Patrick Maloney. He's in the definition of a swing district, if you look at the history of the 19th, I guess it is, right? In New York. Does he campaign on this? When he's pushed on this, does he try and disavow it? How do we think, and this is a guy running for House, running for re-election, Democrats thought after the shutdown they not only would hold the Senate, but they can take the House back. If you're a Democratic incumbent in a non-blue of blue districts here, how do you campaign on Obamacare, all things equal right now, in the spring and the fall and the summer?
I think there will be some Democrats, particularly in the South and the West, who run against it, who say, I would like to see it repealed. You'll see maybe 11, 12 of those. The Sean Patrick Maloneys who voted no on the recent vote related to it, or even the Tim Bishop in Suffolk County, who also voted no on that same recent vote, they're not going to say get rid of Obamacare. They're going to say let's work to fix Obamacare, and my opponent is going to work to destroy it. Let's keep it and fix it. So it's not going to embrace it, going to hold it at arm's length, going to say it needs work.
How important do you think it'll be in the elections, Obamacare? Huge?
I think it's going to be really important, and I disagree with the choice to run away from it. And I agree with you, it's going to happen. And tell me when that has ever historically worked. You see that all the time people run away from it, they get killed.
It's
not a good idea. It's for nothing.
Right.
So, you know, certainly say it needs to be fixed, and we're going to work to fix it, but to run away from it, I think is a huge mistake for Democrats.
Is there anything, Dominic, finally, the president should do that he's not doing already on this?
No, frankly, he already screwed up enough. I mean, there's no other way. There's no other way to put it. I mean, because this president, Mr. Technology himself, Mr. BlackBerry himself, right? He should have been on top. This president should have been micromanaging every detail of his signature issue.
Do you think he just didn't know, or he lied?
No, I think what he does is, we know now the management structure. He trusted his lieutenants, right?
Right.
And he had the wrong lieutenants who didn't want to disappoint him. Less than being afraid of him like some presidents, we read the whole TikTok. The Times did a great story on this. They were so afraid to disappoint him. There's such a disconnect between the technical, you know, the outsourced agencies that were working on this and the agency folks here. They couldn't really speak the same language.
I don't buy that, Richard. I really don't buy that.
I'm not saying excuse it, but I think that's what happened.
Okay, we don't want to offend or disappoint the president, so we're not going to say anything. We'll just wait until the website is hot and the entire world and the media is looking at it.
It is a case study for now not to run, you know, an operation. That's for sure. Okay. Now, the new Obamacare rollout, the topic of our first online question for you at home tonight. And I asked the same question I asked the panel. Is it too late to save the president's signature program, or is it still early to call this thing a failure? Find us on Facebook and Twitter and sound off. All right, up next here, we go back to New York, but to the Capital District. From Cuomo to the Koch Wars to the rise of today's leaders in Albany, get an inside view with political veteran, consultant, and author Jerry Kramer. That's straight ahead.